Have you ever found yourself standing at a crossroads in life, desperately asking God for direction, only to be met with silence? You pray, you wait, you search for signs, yet the answers seem distant, hidden behind uncertainty and confusion. The situation becomes even more difficult when the stakes are high. A financial struggle, a family problem, a career decision, a season where every path seems unclear. Most people assume that divine direction arrives as a dramatic revelation, a voice from heaven, a miraculous sign, an unmistakable answer that removes all doubt. But according to Solomon, one of the wisest men who ever lived, that is rarely how God guides his people. In fact, Solomon discovered something that changes the way we understand difficult seasons. God often provides direction before he provides answers. The problem is that most people are looking for solutions while God is trying to develop wisdom. That difference changes everything. When fear takes control, people become obsessed with escaping their circumstances. They rush into decisions. They chase quick fixes. They look for immediate relief. Yet history shows that some of the greatest mistakes are made during moments of panic. Solomon watched kings lose kingdoms because they acted too quickly. He watched wealthy men become poor because they followed emotion instead of wisdom. He watched entire nations suffer because their leaders could not distinguish between urgency and importance. And through those observations, he arrived at a profound conclusion. The greatest danger during difficult times is not the difficulty itself. It is losing the ability to see clearly. Because when your vision becomes clouded by fear, anxiety, frustration, or impatience, even the right path can appear wrong. What if the reason you feel stuck today is not because God has stopped guiding you? What if the real problem is that the noise of fear has become louder than the voice of wisdom? Throughout his writings, Solomon repeatedly returned to the same principle. Wisdom is more valuable than silver, more precious than gold, more reliable than human strength. Because wisdom allows you to recognize God's direction even when circumstances seem completely uncertain. And that is exactly what we are going to explore today. Not how to avoid difficult seasons, not how to force immediate answers, but how to recognize divine direction when life becomes confusing. Because according to Solomon, the people who emerge strongest from difficult times are not always the smartest, the richest, or the most powerful. They are the ones who learn how to see what others cannot see. And that journey begins with a lesson most people completely overlook. The greatest mistake people make during difficult seasons is believing that their biggest problem is the situation in front of them. When finances become uncertain, they think money is the problem. When relationships begin to struggle, they think the other person is the problem. When opportunities disappear, they think circumstances are the problem. But Solomon saw something deeper. Long before a crisis destroys a person's future, it first disturbs their ability to think clearly. This is why two people can experience the same difficulty and produce completely different outcomes. One becomes stronger, the other becomes bitter. One discovers opportunity, the other sees only obstacles. One grows wiser, the other becomes trapped in fear. The difference is rarely found in the situation itself. The difference is found in perception. Proverbs repeatedly emphasizes the importance of understanding because Solomon knew that what you see determines how you respond, and how you respond ultimately shapes your future. Think about this for a moment. During a storm at sea, the greatest danger is not always the storm itself. The greatest danger is losing sight of your direction. A skilled captain can survive enormous waves if he knows where he is going, but even calm waters become dangerous when navigation is lost. Life works the same way. Many people are not suffering because their problems are too large. They are suffering because uncertainty has stolen their sense of direction. And once direction disappears, fear quickly fills the empty space. Fear begins asking questions that wisdom would never ask. What if everything falls apart? What if I fail? What if this situation never changes? What if God has forgotten me? The longer those questions remain unanswered, the louder they become. Eventually, many people stop seeking wisdom and start seeking escape. They want immediate relief, immediate certainty, immediate solutions. But Solomon warns that haste often creates the very problems people are trying to avoid. The pressure to act quickly can become more dangerous than the original crisis itself. That is why some of the worst financial decisions are made during recessions. Some of the worst relationship decisions are made during emotional pain, and some of the worst spiritual decisions are made during seasons of waiting. People become so desperate to leave their discomfort that they abandon wisdom altogether. Yet Solomon teaches a radically different approach. Before asking, "How do I escape this situation?" ask, "What is this situation trying to teach me?" Because the moment that question appears, everything begins to change. You stop looking only at the problem. You start looking for understanding. And according to Solomon, that is often the exact moment divine direction begins to reveal itself. When Solomon became king, he faced a responsibility that would have terrified most people. He was young, inexperienced, surrounded by enormous expectations. An entire nation depended on decisions he had never made before. If there was ever a moment to ask God for wealth, power, military strength, or protection, this was it. Yet Solomon asked for none of those things. Instead, he asked for wisdom. That decision reveals one of the most important lessons about divine direction. God often provides wisdom before he provides solutions. Most people want God to remove uncertainty immediately. They want clear instructions, specific outcomes, guaranteed results. But wisdom operates differently. Wisdom does not always show you the entire road. It teaches you how to take the next step. This is why many people miss God's guidance during difficult seasons. They are waiting for complete certainty while God is offering understanding. And understanding rarely arrives all at once. It grows, it develops, it sharpens your vision little by little. Think about a person driving through dense fog. The headlights do not illuminate the entire journey. They reveal only a short distance ahead, yet that limited visibility is enough to reach the destination. Wisdom functions in the same way. God does not always reveal the entire future because doing so would remove the need for faith. Instead, he provides enough light for the next decision, enough clarity for the next step, enough understanding for today's challenge. Solomon learned that wisdom is not simply knowledge. Knowledge tells you what is happening. Wisdom tells you what to do about it. Many people possess information but lack direction. They know the facts. They know the risks. They know the possibilities, yet they remain confused because information alone cannot produce discernment. Wisdom transforms information into action. This explains why two people can receive the same advice and achieve completely different outcomes. One applies wisdom, the other merely collects knowledge. The difference becomes visible over time. Proverbs teaches that wisdom is more valuable than gold because gold can solve temporary problems, but wisdom can guide an entire lifetime. Money can disappear. Opportunities can vanish, circumstances can change overnight, but wisdom remains. And that is why God was pleased with Solomon's request. He understood that if wisdom was present, many other blessings would naturally follow. The same principle applies today. Before asking God to remove every obstacle, perhaps the better question is this: Lord, what wisdom are you trying to give me through this season? Because sometimes the answer you need is not hidden in a future miracle. Sometimes it is hidden inside the wisdom God is already trying to place within you. And once that wisdom begins to grow, something else begins to lose its power: fear. If wisdom helps you see clearly, fear does the exact opposite. Fear narrows your vision. It magnifies problems while hiding possibilities. It convinces you that immediate action is always better than patient understanding. And perhaps most dangerously, fear creates the illusion that urgency is wisdom. Solomon understood this deeply because he spent years observing how people behaved under pressure. He noticed a pattern that continues to repeat itself today. When people become afraid, they stop making decisions based on truth and start making decisions based on emotion. A fearful person often believes they are being practical. They believe they are protecting themselves. They believe they are acting responsibly, yet many times they are simply reacting. And reactions rarely produce the same results as wisdom. Imagine someone standing in a dark room. A rope lies on the floor. Fear whispers, "It's a snake." The heart begins racing. The mind starts imagining danger. The body prepares for a threat that may not even exist. Nothing changed in the room. Only perception changed. That is the power of fear. It causes people to respond to imagined disasters as if they were present realities. This is why difficult seasons can become so spiritually exhausting. The challenge itself is often not what drains people. It is the constant anticipation of what might happen next. The endless cycle of what if. What if the money runs out? What if the opportunity never comes? What if the situation gets worse? What if I make the wrong decision? Every one of those questions pulls attention away from the present moment and into an uncertain future. And the further the mind travels into fear, the harder it becomes to hear wisdom. This is one reason Scripture repeatedly connects fear and confusion. Fear creates noise. Wisdom requires clarity. Fear creates pressure. Wisdom requires patience. Fear demands immediate answers. Wisdom grows through careful observation. Solomon knew that many people destroy their own opportunities because they panic before the outcome is known. They abandon plans too early. They quit too soon. They sell what should have been held. They speak when they should listen. They run when they should remain still. And afterward, they wonder why the situation became worse. The tragedy is not that they lacked intelligence. The tragedy is that fear temporarily took control of their judgment. This is why divine direction often begins with calming the heart before changing the circumstances. God frequently works first on your perspective, because a fearful mind can stand directly in front of an open door and still see only walls. But once fear begins to lose its grip, something remarkable happens. The same situation that once looked impossible starts revealing details that were always there. Opportunities become visible, solutions begin to emerge, and what seemed like silence starts sounding very different, because sometimes God is not absent during difficult seasons. Sometimes fear is simply speaking louder than wisdom. And that is where Solomon introduces another lesson that modern culture struggles to understand: the power of silence. One of the most uncomfortable experiences in life is feeling that heaven has gone silent. You pray and receive no immediate answer. You seek direction and encounter uncertainty. You ask for clarity, yet the path ahead remains hidden. For many people, silence feels like abandonment. But Solomon viewed silence differently. He understood that silence is not always the absence of guidance. Sometimes it is the environment where wisdom grows. Modern culture teaches us to move constantly. If something is not working, change it. If an answer does not arrive immediately, look somewhere else. If uncertainty appears, do anything to escape it. Yet Solomon repeatedly observed that many of life's greatest mistakes are born from an inability to remain still long enough to understand what is happening. A person who cannot tolerate silence often mistakes movement for progress. They assume that action itself guarantees results, but activity and wisdom are not the same thing. A ship can move rapidly in the wrong direction. A traveler can walk all day and become even more lost. Movement alone proves nothing. Direction is what matters. This is why silence becomes so powerful. Silence creates space between emotion and decision. It allows fear to settle. It gives wisdom room to speak. When a lake is stirred by wind, its surface becomes distorted. The water reflects nothing clearly. But when the wind calms, the surface becomes like a mirror. The same principle applies to the human mind. When emotions are constantly agitated, perception becomes distorted. Everything appears more threatening. Every challenge seems larger. Every uncertainty feels urgent. But in moments of quiet reflection, reality begins to reveal itself more accurately. Solomon knew this. He spent years observing patterns, listening carefully, and studying human nature. His wisdom did not emerge from constant activity, it emerged from deliberate observation. That is why many people miss divine direction. They are so focused on forcing answers that they never pause long enough to recognize the guidance already present. Sometimes the answer is hidden in a conversation. Sometimes it appears through a recurring opportunity. Sometimes it emerges through a growing conviction that quietly strengthens over time. But these things are rarely noticed by a restless mind. Silence sharpens awareness. It teaches patience. It develops discernment. And perhaps most importantly, it exposes the difference between what is truly important and what merely feels urgent. The remarkable thing is that many of God's greatest servants experienced seasons of waiting before seasons of clarity. The waiting was not punishment, it was preparation. The silence was not rejection, it was instruction. And once a person learns to stop fighting the silence, they begin noticing something unexpected. The difficult season itself starts revealing opportunities that were invisible before. What once looked like an obstacle begins to look like preparation. What once felt like delay begins to look like direction. And that realization leads directly to one of Solomon's most powerful lessons: the ability to recognize opportunities hidden inside adversity. Most people see adversity as evidence that something has gone wrong. Solomon often saw it as evidence that something was being revealed. This difference in perspective separates those who merely survive difficult seasons from those who grow through them. When circumstances become challenging, the natural tendency is to focus entirely on what has been lost. Lost opportunities, lost income, lost certainty, lost comfort, lost plans. And while those losses are real, Solomon understood that focusing exclusively on loss creates a dangerous form of blindness. You become so occupied with what has disappeared that you fail to notice what has appeared. History repeatedly demonstrates this principle. Entire industries have emerged during recessions. Innovations have been born during shortages. Leaders have risen during crises. Opportunities that would have remained invisible during comfortable seasons suddenly become obvious when conditions change. Why? Because difficulty forces people to see reality differently. Comfort often hides possibilities. Pressure exposes them. This is one reason Solomon placed such a high value on discernment. Discernment allows you to recognize what others overlook. Two people can stand in the same situation and reach completely different conclusions. One sees only obstacles, the other sees preparation. One sees only limitations, the other sees possibilities. The external circumstances are identical. The internal perspective is not. Think about Joseph in Egypt. Before the famine arrived, most people saw abundance. Joseph saw preparation, while others celebrated the present moment. He was preparing for the future that nobody else could yet see. His ability to recognize opportunity within changing circumstances eventually positioned him to save nations during crisis. The opportunity was always there. The difference was vision. This is why adversity can become a powerful teacher. It strips away distractions. It exposes weaknesses. It reveals priorities. It forces questions that comfort never asks. And often, it uncovers strengths you never knew you possessed. Many people discover courage during hardship. Others discover resilience, some discover leadership, others discover purpose. These qualities were already within them. The difficulty simply revealed them. Solomon understood that wisdom does not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Wisdom asks, "What can this teach me?" That question transforms everything. Instead of becoming trapped in frustration, you become curious. Instead of obsessing over what is missing, you begin looking for what is emerging. And that shift changes how you experience the entire season. What once appeared to be a closed door may actually be a redirection. What looked like failure may become preparation. What felt like an interruption may become the very path that leads you toward your calling. But there is one final truth that Solomon discovered. Sometimes the opportunity hidden within adversity is not an external opportunity at all. Sometimes the greatest work God is doing is happening inside you. And that is why many difficult seasons are not obstacles to your future. They are preparation for it. One of the hardest truths to accept during a difficult season is that not every struggle is designed to stop you. Some struggles are designed to prepare you. This idea appears repeatedly throughout Scripture. Before Joseph governed Egypt, he endured betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment. Before David wore a crown, he spent years hiding in caves, fleeing for his life. Even Solomon himself spent years learning before becoming known for his wisdom. None of these seasons looked like preparation while they were happening. They looked like setbacks, delays, disappointments, unanswered questions. Yet looking back, it becomes clear that the preparation was just as important as the promotion. Imagine giving great responsibility to someone who has never developed patience, or influence to someone who lacks character, or opportunity to someone who cannot manage pressure. The blessing itself could become destructive. This is why preparation often happens before understanding. God develops the person before revealing the full assignment, and that process is rarely comfortable. Difficult seasons expose weaknesses that success would conceal. They reveal habits that need correction. They uncover fears that must be confronted. They teach dependence, humility, endurance, and trust, qualities that cannot be purchased, qualities that cannot be inherited, qualities that must be developed. Solomon understood that wisdom grows through experience. Not every lesson can be learned from instruction alone. Some truths must be lived. Some insights emerge only after walking through uncertainty. Some forms of understanding are born only through perseverance. This explains why certain prayers seem to take longer than expected. It is not always because God is withholding an answer. Sometimes He is preparing the person who will receive it. A farmer does not harvest the day after planting. The seed requires time beneath the surface before growth becomes visible, and during that hidden process, important things are happening even though nothing appears to be changing. Many people become discouraged because they judge progress only by visible results, but preparation often happens underground. Character is being strengthened, perspective is being refined, wisdom is being developed, faith is becoming deeper. And while none of this may seem dramatic in the moment, these invisible changes frequently become the foundation for everything that follows. One day Joseph's prison became a palace. One day David's wilderness became a kingdom. One day Solomon's years of learning became extraordinary wisdom. The preparation eventually became visible, and perhaps that is the lesson you need most right now. What if this season is not proof that you are lost? What if it is proof that something is being built within you that cannot be built any other way? Because according to Solomon, the people who ultimately find divine direction are not always those who escape difficulty the fastest. They are those who allow difficulty to complete its work. And that realization leads us to Solomon's final and most important conclusion about finding direction in uncertain times. After observing kings, merchants, laborers, families, nations, successes, failures, victories, and tragedies, Solomon eventually arrived at a conclusion that remains just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. The people who navigate difficult seasons most effectively are not necessarily the strongest. They are not always the wealthiest. They are not always the most talented. They are the people who learn to trust wisdom more than their emotions. This is the thread that connects every lesson we have explored. Wisdom allows you to see clearly when fear tries to blind you. Wisdom teaches patience when uncertainty creates pressure. Wisdom reveals opportunities hidden inside adversity. Wisdom helps you understand that preparation often happens before promotion, and wisdom reminds you that God's direction is usually discovered one step at a time. Many people spend their lives waiting for certainty before they move forward. But certainty is not what Solomon pursued. He pursued understanding. He understood that life would always contain unknowns. Markets would rise and fall. Nations would prosper and decline. Relationships would experience seasons of joy and seasons of struggle. Plans would sometimes succeed and sometimes fail. Yet through all of those changes, wisdom remained a reliable guide. That is why Solomon repeatedly declared that wisdom was more valuable than silver and more precious than gold, because wealth can disappear, circumstances can change, opportunities can come and go, but wisdom continues to guide you regardless of the season. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about divine direction is the belief that God will always reveal the entire path before asking us to walk it. Scripture tells a different story. Again and again, God provided enough light for the next step, not the entire journey. Faith was never about seeing everything. Faith was about trusting the one who sees everything, and that trust becomes especially important during difficult times, because difficult seasons often tempt us to measure God's presence by our circumstances. If things are improving, we assume He is near. If things are difficult, we assume He is distant. But Solomon's wisdom points to a different reality. God's guidance is not determined by how comfortable your circumstances feel. His guidance is often most active during the very seasons that seem most confusing. The challenge is learning how to recognize it. That recognition begins with a simple decision. Choose wisdom over panic. Choose patience over haste. Choose observation over reaction. Choose trust over fear. And choose growth over resentment. When you make those choices consistently, something remarkable begins to happen. The confusion slowly loses its power. The fear becomes quieter. The next step becomes clearer. And what once felt like a maze begins to reveal a path. Not because every question has been answered, not because every obstacle has disappeared, but because wisdom has taught you how to walk forward, even when complete certainty is unavailable. So if you find yourself facing a difficult season today, remember this. You do not need to know everything about tomorrow to take the next faithful step today. The same God who gave Solomon wisdom still guides those who seek it, and often the direction you are praying for begins not with a miracle, but with a wiser way of seeing the path already before you.